Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 5. Today we're going to be talking about all about your thyroid. Okay, we're going to go over everything you need to know about thyroid health, all about the ins and outs, how to get your levels checked, what to look for on labs, signs that your thyroid might be sluggish, when to see a doctor, and we're going to go over a bunch of natural things you can do as well to help boost thyroid function and thyroid health. Okay, so in episode 1, I gave you guys an overview of my weight gain and hormone journey. And one of the symptoms that I had, or one of the issues that I have had, was very low thyroid production. So I had really low free T3 and very high reverse T3. So we're going to go over what those mean, how those affect us, how to know if you might be having issues with this as well. So during that journey, you guys, when I was gaining weight, or if you remember, I gained 50 pounds in a year. And I just really dove into why this was happening to me, how to stop it, trying to learn everything I could about thyroid, about hormones, and really just what was going on. So I read so many books. And one thing I did is a little tip if you want to learn more things about what you're studying. So I read books, and if I liked the book, I actually booked a phone consult with the author. Quite a few of these authors do phone consults. And so I consulted with authors, I met with doctors, I worked with coaches and mentors, took certifications, and I did so much research into thyroid health. And I want to share just an overview of that today. Actually, we're going to dive pretty deep into it, but I'm going to keep it basic level so that it's easy to understand. Okay, so let's just go ahead and jump right in. So overview of your thyroid. So we're going to talk about, these buzzwords, TSH, different things and what they mean first. Okay, so your thyroid is a butterfly shaped gland in your neck, and it basically really kind of runs your metabolism. So when the thyroid hormone binds to its receptors, it activates the genes that are responsible for increasing your metabolic rate and thermogenesis. So thermogenesis means fat burning. So if your thyroid is not working optimally, it's going to slow down your metabolism and slow down your rate of fat burn. Okay, so let's talk about what are some different things that you might be hearing about. So TSH. So to start things off, TSH is released from your pituitary gland, and TSH is what tells your thyroid how much thyroid hormone to make. Okay, so ideally, like in a perfect world, if your thyroid hormone levels in your blood are too low, your pituitary gland is going to make more TSH, which will signal to your thyroid to work harder and produce more hormone. Does that make sense? So TSH is really kind of what starts this chain of events that we're gonna talk through. Okay, so TSH tells your thyroid hormone how much tells your thyroid how much hormone to produce. So your thyroid produces T4. T4 is actually an inactive version of that thyroid hormone. And T4 has to be converted to T3, which is the usable form of thyroid in our bodies. Okay, so you've probably heard these things before. If you've dived into thyroid health before, you've got your TSH, your T4, and T3. Okay, now there's another lab in here that you can test that doesn't get talked about quite as much, and that is called reverse T3. Okay, so let's talk about this for a second. So reverse T3, it kind of gets a bad rap because it will, if you have high reverse T3 levels, it will actually slow down your metabolism. But really, from an evolutionary perspective, it acts kind of as a protective mechanism for our body. So how it works is reverse T3 slows our metabolism by actually blocking those hormone receptors that I talked about just a minute ago and preventing T3 from doing its job. Okay, so like I mentioned before, if you remember, thyroid hormone binds to those receptors, and that activates the genes that increase our metabolic rate. So when you have high reverse T3, it's going to bind to those receptors and kind of block T3 from doing its job. Does that make sense, you guys? Hopefully I'm kind of breaking this down into easy to understand language. That's my goal here. So picture T4 as a stream. Okay, so picture T4 as a stream, ready to be converted into T3, but there's a rock in the stream and it's going to separate. So if you have a rock in a stream, it's going to separate the body of water, right? And so T4 can either be converted into active T3, which regulates our metabolism, right? And speeds up our metabolism if we have healthy levels, or it can be converted into reverse T3 that's going to block those hormone receptors, okay? We want as much of it being converted to T3 as possible. Does that make sense? So reverse T3 will slow the metabolism by blocking those receptors, and T3 will help speed it up. So let's kind of talk about why we have reverse T3. And many doctors actually won't test this. Let's kind of go into why. So from an evolutionary perspective, reverse T3 was helpful, like I said. So for example, if we have a disease, let's say we've got cancer or, some sort of disease that our body's trying to heal from. Our bodies are very adaptive and they want to help us. They want to preserve our health, right? So our bodies are going to convert more of that T4 to reverse T3 to actually slow our metabolism on purpose to help our bodies focus on healing, okay? Metabolism is something that is not necessary for, a healthy metabolism, I should say, a fast metabolism is not necessary for living, right? And so that reverse T3 can actually slow down our metabolism and say, okay, let's not put as many resources into this while we try and heal from this other disease that might actually kill us or something like that, okay? So it does have a purpose, but reverse T3 is not at all helpful for fat loss, weight management, or really just feeling optimal, right? So why won't your doctor test this? Many doctors won't test this if you're otherwise healthy because they assume that your reverse T3 is probably fine if you are not sick, if you aren't having a disease, if you're not dying of something, they're going to assume that your reverse T3 is fine. So it kind of makes sense why they might think that, but you kind of underestimate how hard stress is on our bodies. And you guys, when our bodies are under extreme amounts of stress for whatever reason, that could be, a death in the family, or it could be, a job change. It could be anything, even under eating, over exercising. For me, when I was competing, it was staying at a low body fat percentage for too long. But it can also be, I see it all the time in people, especially women who think that they have to eat 1,200 calories every single day for years on end. That is a huge stress on your body and it will affect your hormones. Okay. So if your body's under extreme amounts of stress, your reverse T3 could be high, which could be slowing down your metabolism. Does that make sense? Hopefully that kind of, me talking through it like that really kind of makes it like, oh, okay, like a aha moment, right? So we also have thyroid antibodies. Okay, so thyroid antibodies are going to develop when your immune system mistakenly targets components of the thyroid gland. So it's an autoimmune response, okay, and it can lead to a lot of thyroid inflammation, tissue damage. It can affect your thyroid function. So if you're testing antibodies and your antibodies are high, this likely means you have Hashimoto's, okay? So those are kind of the things we're testing here. If you get a full thyroid panel done by your doctor, they're going to ideally look at TSH, T4, T3, reverse T3, and your antibodies. Okay, so that's kind of just an overview of what all of those are, why it's important to look at all of them. Okay, if a lot of doctors will only test TSH because what they're thinking is, remember, if you go back to the beginning of what we were talking about, okay, your pituitary gland releases TSH, and how much TSH is released signals how much thyroid hormone your thyroid will produce, right? So doctors think if your TSH is a good level, that must mean your thyroid is functioning fine, right? But there's so many other missing pieces. Okay, there's so many missing pieces. Like, if you're just testing TSH, it does not tell us how much T4 you have. It does not tell us how much T4 is converting to T3. It doesn't tell us how much T4 is converting to reverse T3. Doesn't tell us if you have any antibodies, which would mean you got Hashimoto's, right? So there's so many holes in just testing TSH. That's why it is crucial to get a full thyroid panel run. So if you're working with your doctor, just make sure you really stress, I want a full thyroid panel run. Ask for all of those labs specifically, and hopefully, cross your fingers, hopefully they will really do that for you, okay? If you're struggling to get that run, you can always go to Life Extension. So lifeextension.com is what we use with our clients in running labs, and you can search for comprehensive weight loss panel. That one has a full thyroid panel included, as well as your sex hormones, your stress hormones, everything you'd need to just kind of see how well things are working from a hormone perspective. But I'm pretty sure you can also go on Life Extension and just purchase a thyroid panel. I'm pretty sure, 90% sure. We always just do that comprehensive weight loss panel, which includes it. But I'm pretty sure you can just get that thyroid panel as well. So now let's say you have your labs. Let's go ahead and go over optimal lab ranges and what you're looking for. Because guys, I hear all the time women on social media and clients tell us that they went to their doctor because they weren't feeling good, right? If you're going to run your labs, chances are you're not feeling good. And we'll go through some signs and symptoms that your thyroid could be sluggish in just a minute. But they go to their doctor with these complaints and their doctor runs their labs and they say, you're fine. Right? I hear it all the time. And if you're listening to this, you might be nodding and being like, oh my gosh, that's what my doctor told me. They told me I was fine. They sent me away. Okay. So oftentimes when a doctor is not well-versed in running labs, because they don't actually learn a lot about this in medical school, okay, unless they're specializing in hormones, okay? So an endocrinologist obviously will have more experience here. But if you're just going to your general practitioner or something, they may not be super experienced in labs or in hormones. And so what they're going to do is they're going to run these labs. They may or may not run all the right labs, and they're just going to check that your results are within the lab ranges. Okay, now let me tell you what these lab ranges are. These lab ranges are an average of who is getting tested. Who usually is getting tested? People who don't feel good, right? So you don't want to be in the middle or the low end of these ranges. You want to be towards the higher end, like the top third or so, or in these optimal ranges. Okay, so I'm going to talk you guys through what you want to see on these labs. And so then if you're with your doctor, you can get a printout from them and you can kind of reevaluate and say, oh, okay, actually, I know that I should be, you can be a better advocate to yourself if you know what you should be looking for as well, right? So let's just touch on each of these really quickly. So TSH, your common lab range, again, this is, I'm in America. These are going to be different. I've seen labs from people in Canada. They do have different units, so they are going to be a bit different. But most in America, your lab ranges for TSH are going to be 0.4 to 4.5 micro IUs per milliliter is the unit for TSH, okay? But optimally, we want it from 1 to 2 because the higher your TSH gets, that means your thyroid has to work even harder to produce the hormones to help you feel good. And we don't want your thyroid to have to work harder. We want it to just be running efficiently and correctly, right? So free T4. Okay, lab ranges are 0.8 to 1.88 picograms per milliliter, okay? Optimally, we want to see 1.1 to 1.5, so kind of right there in the middle. That lab range isn't too far off from your optimal range, just a little bit tighter. Free T3, the lab range is 1.9 to 4.2 picograms, okay, per milliliter. Optimal is 3.4. So this is a great example of where you really want to be towards that higher end, that 3 to 4. If your free T3 is in the 2s, low to mid 2s, you are probably not feeling great. And again, we're going to go over in just 1 second the signs that your thyroid is sluggish. But oftentimes when we have clients who are struggling to lose weight and we see their free T3, they are either in the 1s or the low to mid 2s. Super common, okay? When my levels were super low, I was 1.6. And then now I typically sit in the high 2s. I'd like to get into the 3s, but for some reason, my body struggles to get up into those 3s. So reverse T3, your lab ranges are going to be 9.2 to 24.1 nanograms per deciliter. Okay, so that's a wide range. But really, we want to see less than 15. Okay, less than 15. Remember, the higher your reverse T3, the slower your metabolism is going to be. So if you're looking at reverse T3 up there from 16 on up to 25 or even higher, I think I've seen up to 35 or 40 before. That means your metabolism is going to be pretty slow because that reverse T3 is attaching to those receptors, remember, which is stopping the free T3 from doing its job of speeding up your metabolism. Okay, does that make sense? Another way you can look at this too is getting a ratio of your free T3 to your reverse T3. So that's kind of a ratio. Remember that stream, that free T4 stream, a ratio of how much of that T4 is converting to T3 and reverse T3. Okay, so what you're going to do if you have labs in front of you, you're going to take your free T3 and just divide that by your reverse T3. And you want it to be over 0.2. So an example, if you have a 3.5 as your free T3 and you have a 13 for your reverse T3, your ratio is going to be 2.27, which is great. Okay, so that's just a quick example. Now let's talk about some signs that your thyroid might be sluggish. Okay, so if you've got extreme fatigue, now I'm talking like you go work out and you can't get out of bed afterwards. You're just like you're exhausted. You can't wake up in the morning. You have to nap to get throughout the day, that kind of thing. Definitely a sign your thyroid could be sluggish. If you have weight gain, so unexplainable weight gain, like your weight is just ticking up every single week, you're not really sure why, or you're in a situation where like, man, I've gained 10 pounds in the last 2 months and I haven't changed anything. Or if you're trying to lose weight and nothing is really happening despite doing all like the right things, that's a sign your thyroid could be sluggish. Okay. Cold hands and feet, cold extremities is another sign thyroid could be sluggish. Dry skin, brittle nails, if your hair's falling out, all of these things are signs that your thyroid's not functioning properly. Joint pain, muscle pain, if you notice like your knuckles are always sore, your knees are always sore, things like that. It can affect mental health as well. Depression, poor memory, those are related to sluggish thyroid function as well. A slow heart rate, constipation, slow digestion, all of these things are related to a sluggish thyroid. Okay. So you might be wondering, well, I feel those things and I want to get this tested, but why is that happening to me? Like what can cause this? So genetics are a thing. If it's in your genetics to have thyroid issues, you want to probably look into this. But really a big thing is environmental factors. So a huge one here is low calorie diets. You guys, studies have showed that it really only takes about 21 days on a very low calorie diet, like think 800 calories, 1,000 calories, think Optavia, HCG, all of these things where your calories are super low to have a negative effect on your thyroid production. You can also be in this position if your calories are low and you're doing a ton of cardio. So like endurance training and you're not fueling well for that can definitely negatively affect thyroid production, okay? Yo-yo dieting, if you're constantly doing extreme yo-yo diets and then followed by times of overeating, all of this up and down can affect thyroid function, okay? A lot of stress can affect it as well. Gut issues like SIBO, IBS, different gut issues where you're just it's kind of hard to know what happened first because having a sluggish thyroid can slow down digestion, but also having gut issues can affect your thyroid, which is kind of like this cycle that it's really hard to break, right? Certain medications, antidepressants, anti-anxiety medication, beta blockers, all of these things can affect thyroid function. Now, I am not saying that you should go off your medication, okay? I am not saying that at all, just making you aware that if you've been on those for a long time, they might be affecting your thyroid health, especially if you're having some of those symptoms. It might be worth looking into, okay? Now let's talk about some supplements, vitamins, things to help with thyroid health and that conversion from T4 to T3, right? Let's talk about some natural things that you can do. Supplements like zinc, selenium, iodine, vitamin A, all of these can be really helpful in that conversion from T4 to T3. And then when you have a lot of inflammation in your system, it can be hard for that conversion as well, that T4 to T3 conversion. So some supplements to fight inflammation would be a good omega-3 supplement, you guys. Omega-3 fatty acids are really one of our strongest natural anti-inflammatories. So important. Magnesium, curcumin, vitamin E, these supplements will help inflammation. If you do get labs done, you can look at CRP, C-reactive protein, and that's kind of a lab value that shows how much inflammation is in your body. So ideally, you want to be like pretty close to zero, like 1 or less. Again, the lab range on that's going to be 3 or less, but ideally you want it 1 or 0, okay? So when to see your doctor? If you're feeling crummy and you're having some of those symptoms I talked about, the tiredness, the weight gain, the brittle hair, nails, dry skin, all of that kind of stuff, it might be time to see your doctor. Okay. If you feel like you don't have a doctor that you trust, knows what they're doing with these kind of things, you can do it on your own through life extension. It's actually super empowering to feel like, oh my gosh, I can look into this on my own. I can get labs on my own and then consult with a doctor if I feel like I want to or need to. Okay. So what you're going to do is you're just going to Google life extension comprehensive weight loss panel. Okay. It works nationwide. Again, not in Canada. You'll have to work with your doctor in Canada, but you can do it nationwide here in the US, and you'll take it to like your local LabCorp. There's a couple of different labs they work with. And basically you buy it from Life Extension. It's either $275 or $206 if it's on sale. It's on sale a lot. And you basically buy it and it acts as the doctor's note. You bring that into the lab and then you don't pay anything when you get to the lab. Okay. They run those labs for you. And then Life Extension emails you a copy of your results. Okay. So I know Life Extension has an option to consult with one of their nurses over your results. I can also go over your labs as well. I just charge $50 and I give you natural suggestions based on your labs. If you feel like you want to go on prescription thyroid medication, then you can just take those labs to your doctor and talk to your doctor about that. Okay. So that's a good option for you. But let's go ahead and go over some natural ways to boost your thyroid levels and thyroid function. Okay. The most important thing, you guys, spend time out of a calorie deficit. If you are spending all of your time every single week, every single month of the year, trying to lose weight in a calorie deficit, this will be really bad for your thyroid function. Okay. Really important to spend significant time at maintenance calories, and it will help boost those thyroid levels. Okay. Sleep. Number 2, sleep is so, so important. If you're working on naturally balancing hormones, it happens during our sleep. You guys, it will not happen if you're getting 4, 5, 6 hours of sleep. You have to be getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep. And we will do a whole podcast on how to improve your sleep quality, how to be able to fall asleep easier, stay asleep, that kind of thing. But for right now, just know that it has to happen, that you're getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Okay. Next thing, a good whole food diet. If you're eating a lot of processed foods, a lot of, unhealthy foods, that kind of thing, I would try to switch that up and focus on 80 to 90% of your foods coming from whole food sources. Things like fruits, oats, vegetables, potatoes, grains, just healthy whole food options. Okay. If it grows from the ground, if it's a single ingredient food label, those kind of are some guidelines on how you know if it's like really a whole natural food. If you do have Hashimoto's or are suspect that you may have Hashimoto's, you might think about cutting out gluten for a little while. Tons of studies have shown that people just do better if they have Hashis if they're on a gluten-free diet. Okay. Stress reduction is going to be huge as well. So really try to focus on adding in just 10 to 15 minutes a day of something that reduces your stress. So whether that is a quick yoga session or deep breathing or meditating, going outside for a walk, anything like that, taking a bath, reading a book, whatever it is for you that can just lower that stress, help you just breathe and kind of just feel centered again, do it. Okay. When it comes to exercise, low to moderate intensity exercise, when you're trying to naturally boost those thyroid levels and balance those out, you want to be careful not to do a ton of HIIT training, a ton of intense circuit training where you're going from, you've got your squats and then your shoulder press, and then you're running a mile on the treadmill and then your burpees and then you rest. Like you want to do more traditional strength training 3 to 4 days a week. You don't want to be doing it every single day. You want to really focus on recovery and making sure you're actually recovering during your workouts and after your workouts. Okay. And the last thing here is focusing on good gut health. That's a whole nother topic, but our guts and our endocrine systems are super intertwined and linked together. And if your gut health is not good, if you also notice like, oh my gosh, I get super constipated, I'm also super bloated. Like I mentioned before, it's hard to know what comes first, whether it's the slow thyroid function that leads to the slow digestion or vice versa, but it's important to focus on both of those. Okay. Now, the question you might all be wondering, is it even possible to lose weight with a sluggish thyroid? Yes, It totally is. It just might be a little bit slower, but that's okay, right? I love slow progress over here. Slow progress is good progress. It's maintainable, it's sustainable, and you need to take a moderate approach. When you have a thyroid or thyroid levels that aren't quite optimal, going too hard, taking calories too low, going too intense with your exercise can kind of backfire because it can actually worsen those levels even more. It can lower those hormone levels, which is going to make fat loss harder. So it's kind of like this circular effect where you're like, okay, I'm pushing too hard, that it's affecting my hormones, which is negatively affecting my progress. But I could stay in a little bit less of a calorie deficit, keep calories a little bit higher, keep my hormones keep my hormones happy, and see more results. Does that make sense? We work with clients all the time with thyroid issues, and we help them see amazing results. You just kind of have to reframe your expectations a bit and be okay with going slower, having that more moderate approach, and you'll do great. Okay. So hopefully that helped answer some questions, you guys. We talked through, what to look for in labs, what things do what, your TSH, your T4, your T3, reverse T3, antibodies, and how those are all related. If you get labs, we talked through how to look at those labs. We talked through symptoms of a sluggish thyroid, and also, some natural things you can do to help boost thyroid function without, going on medication. So yeah, hopefully that helped you. Please reach out if you guys have any questions. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. So if you enjoyed this episode, screenshot and share it. Leave me a rating and review. I would love it. I'm a new podcast, helps it get out there to more people. And I appreciate you guys listening, and I will see you guys next time.